Hello everybody, it's Miss Kristen and I'm here for our Read Aloud. So I'm going to be reading aloud from Once Upon an Eid, the Stories of Hope and Joy by 15 Muslim Voices. And so it's a short story anthology, so it's written by a bunch of different people and they all have their own short story. So I have one that I'm going to read. It's called Kareem Means Generous by Asmaa Hussein. You can see a nice illustration there. Kareem wiped his sweaty forehead with his sleeve. Mr. Johnson's unruly lawn was tamed at last. At the end of winter, Kareem had outgrown his old bike. He was already as tall as his dad. To save up for a Super Speedster X and a matching helmet, if he made enough money, he'd been doing odd jobs all Ramadan. Watering Mr. Khan's plants while he traveled to visit his son in Pakistan, buying groceries for Mr. Donaldson while she recovered from a broken leg, and washing Mr. Adler's muddy car after he drove up to the mountains for a hiking trip. But this last job had been the hardest, especially while fasting. "Here's your $10, Mr. Johnson said. "My wife's going to be thrilled when she sees this. I haven't mowed this beast in 3 months. "Thanks, Mr. Johnson," Kareem said, sliding the bill into his pocket. "Call me if you have any other chores that need doing." Just as Kareem arrived home, his dad called from the kitchen. "Iftar time." Kareem was starving. He nearly dove headfirst into the lentil soup, koshari, and roasted chicken his mom had cooked for their evening meal. Breaking his fast had never felt so good. Can you please take 2 seconds to say Bismillah before stuffing your face?" Mom said. "Oops," Kareem said, stuffed with chipmunk cheeks. "Bismillah." Kareem noticed Dad tapping his pencil against a notepad full of illegible scribbles. "What's wrong, Dad?" Kareem asked. "You seem distracted." Dad sighed. "I have designer's block. It's like writer's block, except for graphic designers. I just can't figure out what angle to take for this company's advertising campaign. My pitch is on Monday." "What do you have so far?" Kareem asked. Dad cleared his throat. "Outstride Biking Equipment Limited. Everything you need for a great ride." "Dad, that's so basic," said Kareem. "I know," groaned Dad. "Okay, brainstorm with me. What's the first word that comes to mind when I say biking?" "Athletes, races, Olympics," Kareem said. "The Olympics? That could work." Dad furiously scribbled something onto his notepad. "So Kareem, I ran into Kim from across the hall today," Mom said casually, changing the subject. "Her son, Sean, is starting a paper route tomorrow morning." Oh no, Kareem could see the wheels turning in his mom's head. She had been trying to get him to hang out with Sean for 2 weeks just because he was the new kid in class. Sean seemed nice enough in school, but Kareem already had friends. "I volunteered your services," Mom tucked her hair behind her ears. "Sean still doesn't know the neighborhood that well. You can show him all the shortcuts on his first day." Kareem groaned. "But why? It's not my paper route. I've been doing so many chores for bike money. All I want to do is sleep in tomorrow." "I know," said Mom, "but it's the considerate thing to do, and it's just for one morning." Kareem could tell from the determined look on Mom's face that she couldn't let this go. "Fine." Kareem's mom nudged him awake at 5 a.m. "Time for suhar," she whispered, "and you're getting Sean in half an hour." Kareem rubbed his eyes and sat up in bed. God, I'd better get a pile of good deed credits for this. At the kitchen table, Kareem inhaled full pita bread and yogurt before the call to Fajr prayer. A big stack of letters sat on the counter. "Kareem, something came for you in the mail yesterday." "I think it's from Tata," said Mom. Kareem's grandma was the best. She only visited once a year, but she was always sending him funny cards, old photos, and newspaper clippings that made her laugh. He ripped the envelope open and pulled out a purple Eid greeting card. 2 crisp green $20 bills slipped out and fluttered to the ground. "$40?" shouted Kareem, setting the card down. "Do you know what this means? No more chores! I can finally buy my bike." He jumped around the room as though he was bouncing on a giant trampoline. Mom opened the card and read Tata's message out loud. "Dear Kareem, Early Eid Mubarak, Habibi. Did you know your name means generous? Think about doing something generous with this money for Eid, will ya? Love, Tata. Kareem stopped. Wait, what does that mean? Well, lots of people won't have an elaborate Eid celebration like we will, Mom said. Maybe that money can bring some happiness to another family. Kareem crossed his arms and stood quietly for a moment. I've been working so hard for a new bike. I deserve this money more than anyone. Anyway, Mom shrugged. Tata sent the money to you, so you decide for yourself. I've decided to generously buy myself the best Eid gift ever. Kareem did a perfect cartwheel, crammed the bills into his pocket, and twirled out the door. So your mom forced you to come on my paper route with me, eh? Sean smirked as he unlocked his bike outside their building. His oversized Montreal Canadiens baseball hat covered most of his forehead. Yeah, kinda. I was already awake for sahur, though, Kareem said. That's the meal we eat before we start fasting. Cool. Well, thanks for coming anyway, said Sean. No problem, Kareem grunted. So, are you a Leafs fan? Sean asked. Because if you are, we can't be friends. Nah, Kareem replied. Hockey isn't my thing, but I am a Raptors fan. Sean chuckled as he stacked what looked like 50 newspapers into his bike basket. All right, I can deal with that. Aren't those heavy? Kareem asked. Yeah, but I'm used to it. I had a paper route in Montreal before I moved here, Sean said. The basket makes it easier to manage, even if I just pushed the bike instead of riding today. The dawn light inched up the horizon as Sean and Kareem made their way through the delivery list. Each time they stopped at a house, Sean walked a few steps into the front yard and carefully tossed a newspaper onto the porch. Then Kareem impatiently crossed the house off the list. The faster they finished, the faster Kareem could grab the money he had saved and get to the bike shop. Halfway through the route, the boys came up to a house surrounded by a chain link fence. 2 fat recycling bins sat in the middle of the sidewalk. Sean pushed his bike onto the quiet road and parked it at the curb in front of the bins. Newspapers in hand, he walked toward the gate, but he hesitated when he saw a clumsy, handwritten note taped to a tiny doghouse on the lawn. Beware of dog. Just as Sean's hand touched the edge of the fence, a chihuahua lunged out of the doghouse and yipped so loudly that both Sean and Kareem jumped backwards. They collided with each other, then, like dominoes, knocked down the recycling bins and Sean's bike. Ah! Yelled Kareem. Stupid dog! How could such a loud sound come from such a tiny body? Huh! I've seen way worse dogs on my other paper routes, Sean said, standing up and brushing the dirt off his pants. At least this one's behind a fence. Let's pick up all this stuff before the owners notice. Kareem righted the bins and collected some of the things that had fallen out of them. Crash! Kareem and Sean whipped their heads around. A rusty gray car screeched to a halt right where Sean's bike had been. The bike slid across the pavement. An angry, balding man threw open his car door. Hey! Get that piece of junk out of the road! You hit my bike! Sean yelled. He ran toward the mess of twisted bike parts and scattered newspapers. Blame yourself, the man retorted, examining the front of his car. It's not my fault you left your bike in the middle of the road. You should be glad it didn't damage my car. Without another word, the man jumped into his car and sped off. Sean lowered himself onto his knees next to his bike. His head hung down as he examined the bent wheel and twisted handlebar. I can't ride it like this, he said. I'm so sorry, Sean. Hey, it doesn't look that bad, Kareem lied. Oh man, it looks totally wrecked. Kareem, do you think you could... What? Do you think you could finish my paper route for me while I wheel the bike home? There are only 7 houses left. Kareem froze. How could he ask me to finish his paper route? I shouldn't even be here at all. I don't think that's a good idea, Kareem replied, grasping for an excuse. I'm probably going to make mistakes. Can't we just go straight home? I'll get in trouble if I don't finish the route, Sean said. He looked around uncertainly. I guess I can just leave the bike on the sidewalk and we'll come get it when we're done. Sean quickly collected the remaining newspapers, stuffing them into his messenger bag, and then dragged the damaged bike onto the sidewalk. They walked on in silence. The neighborhood was still asleep, and everything was quiet except for the sound of a distant, rumbling garbage truck. After Sean delivered the final paper on his route, the boys sprinted back toward the house with the chain-link fence. Like clockwork, the Chihuahua started barking right as they turned the corner and spotted the house. But something wasn't right. The bike was gone! They frantically searched behind the recycling bins and between the bushes. "We left it right here," Sean panted. "Where is it? Do you think someone stole it?" Kareem lifted the lids of the recycling bins and peered inside. "Oh God, no, this can't be happening." "The bins are empty," he gulped. "The truck must have come by while we were gone. They probably thought the bike was junk too." Sean let out a groan and kicked the curb hard. He pulled his baseball cap over his face and sat down next to the empty bins. Kareem shoved his hands into his pockets. An uncomfortable sadness tugged at his throat. "This wasn't supposed to happen. I was just going to show him some shortcuts, then split." "Hey," Kareem said awkwardly, "maybe your mom can get you a new bike." "No, she spent all her savings on stuff for the new apartment," Sean replied. "My dad won't help either. He still lives in Montreal and doesn't like it when I ask him for money." Ugh, what was I thinking? That was such a dumb thing to say. The boys trudged home in silence. "Let me know what your mom says," Kareem mumbled as they stepped into the elevator. Sean replied with a low grunt. "Okay." At home, Kareem threw himself onto his bed and yawned. His whole body felt strangely itchy, and he couldn't get the image of Sean out of his head. It's not my fault his bike got thrown away. It was just an accident. But every time Kareem tried closing his eyes, all he saw was Sean sitting on the sidewalk with his baseball cap over his face. On Monday morning, just 5 days before Eid, Kareem clipped his helmet strap shut and rode his new bike to school. Mom had taken him shopping over the weekend. She had chosen a sparkly Eid banner and gold balloons at Party City, and Kareem had gotten his bike at Canadian Tire. The best part was standing at the store register and finding out the bike was on sale, so he didn't even have to use the $40 Tata had sent him. Kareem planned to go back to the store after school to buy a new helmet. His old one was scuffed and didn't match the shiny new bike. Just as Kareem had anticipated, the ride to school was as smooth as butter. A cool breeze hit his face and hugged the back of his neck. This is the life. "Good morning, class," Mrs. Water chirped at the start of first period. Halfway through attendance, the door creaked open and Sean crept into the room. He quickly slid into the seat right in front of Kareem. Sean's shoelaces were undone and the back of his neck was coated with beads of sweat. He must have been running. Is he late because of his paper route? Kareem wondered. When the period 2 bell rang, Mrs. Waters stopped in front of Sean's desk. "Sean, I know you're still a bit new here, but I expect my students to be on time." Sean nodded. "Sorry, I'll try my best to get here earlier." Kareem watched Sean fiddle with his pencil case as they waited for the math teacher. Kareem poked him. "Hey, Sean." Sean turned around. "Oh, hey, Kareem. Did you miss the bus?" "No, they added 5 new houses to my paper route. I kind of miscalculated how long it would take to get around without a bike." "Oh, yeah, that must be hard." "Just say it already. You'll feel better." "I'm sorry. I should have just finished your paper route for you that day." "It's not your fault," Sean shrugged. "I think it was just bad luck. If I leave home half an hour earlier, I can deliver the newspapers and get to school on time." Kareem was shocked. "Half an hour earlier? But you already leave home before sunrise." "It's temporary," Sean replied. "I'm saving for a new bike. I should be able to get one in a few days. I should be able to get one in a few weeks." The math teacher walked in before Kareem could say anything more. What would he have said anyway? Sean looked exhausted, and there was nothing Kareem could do about it. At the end of the day, Kareem zipped open his backpack in front of his locker. Something purple slid out of his bag and landed on the ground. Tata's Eid Mubarak card. Is this card haunting me? No, it probably just got stuck in one of my notebooks. Kareem opened it and reread it. "Did you know your name means generous?" He angrily shoved the card back into his bag. I know what my name means, but it's too late now. I'm buying my helmet. Kareem got onto his bike and rode until he was in front of Canadian Tire. He ran to the back of the store and scanned the helmets hanging on the racks. He picked one up and admired its sleek black and red stripes. It looked perfect, but felt heavier than normal. Too heavy. Helmet in hand, Kareem wandered through the aisles for a while until he reached the sports equipment section and noticed a big red sign that read, "Clearance." Kareem rifled through the knickknacks on the shelf, and then he noticed a box pushed all the way to the back. The man on the box was riding a bicycle with a large basket hooked onto the front of it. The basket was full of groceries, a bouquet of flowers, and a tiny dog. A shiver ran up Kareem's spine. He stared at the box for a few seconds. This delivery basket would be perfect for Sean, if he had a bike. He stared longingly at the shiny new helmet in one hand and the delivery basket in the other. He could only afford one. Knock, knock, knock. Kareem stood at Sean's door at 5:15 the next morning. He was about to knock again when he heard shuffling coming from inside. Sean swung the door open. His hair was messy and his eyes looked heavy and tired. He was wearing only one shoe. Hi, Kareem stammered. Sorry for knocking so early, but I figured you'd be awake. Hi, Sean replied, stifling a massive yawn. What's up? He bent down to put his other shoe on. You can borrow my bike for your paper route, Kareem flirted. I hung up a big delivery basket on the front for the newspapers. Sean's mouth hung open. Wow, he said slowly. I mean, that's really generous of you, but don't you ride your bike to school? Yeah, but I planned the whole thing out already, Kareem said. You'll take my bike in the morning for your paper route, then ride it straight to school and lock it up outside. After school, I'll pick it up and ride it home. Easy. Sean nodded. Yeah, but how are you getting to school in the morning? Bus, Kareem said. He suppressed a shudder at the word. He hated taking the bus, but he couldn't stand the thought of Sean waking up in the dead of night like this. On Friday afternoon, Kareem arrived home from school to find Mom hanging up the Eid banner with the phone perched between her shoulder and her ear. Eid is tomorrow, Mom said, throwing her arms around Kareem and squeezing tight. Oh, and Tata's on the phone for you. Assalamu alaikum. Tata, Eid Mubarak, Kareem grinned into the receiver. Wa alaikum salam, Kareem. How's my favorite grandson? I'm your only grandson, he laughed. Tata liked using that joke a lot. Alhamdulillah, Tata, how are you? They chatted for a while about what they were each going to do for Eid. Then he told her about buying the delivery basket and letting Sean use his bike for his paper route. I've been taking the bus in the morning, Kareem explained. It's annoying and slower than my bike, but at least Sean is always on time for the first period now. Well, I never thought my note would lead you on such an adventure, Tata said. The name Kareem suits you. Thanks, Tata, he blushed. You know, Tata continued, when you've gotten old like me, you realize the things you give away make you happier than the things you keep for yourself. That made sense. Even though Kareem had worked all of Ramadan to save up for his bike, he was actually kind of glad to be sharing it with Sean. Weird. I have to hang up now, Hababi, Tata said. I don't want to burn my Eid basbousa, but I want to tell you something else before I forget. What is it, Tata? He asked. Anytime you share something you love, it comes right back to you like a boomerang. You never lose it. Just wait and see. On Eid morning, the apartment smelled like butter, cinnamon, and coconut. No more fasting. As Kareem put on his white thobe for Eid prayer, he heard a loud rapping at the door. FedEx delivery, a man called from outside. It's for me, Dad said, answering the door. Wow, this is a huge box. Dad ripped open the note inside. Dear Mr. Nazir, thanks for your fantastic work on the ad campaign. We look forward to working with you again. Enjoy this gift. Yours truly, Outstride Limited. Shall we open it and see what's inside? Yeah, Kareem yelled. Dad used kitchen scissors to slice open the layers of tape on the box before pulling out some styrofoam padding. Dad scratched his head. It's a bike. Oh, Dad, Kareem said, this isn't just any bike. This is a Super Speedster X bike. It's exactly like the one I just bought. Like, exactly. It's even the same color. Well, That's a strange coincidence, said Dad. Anyway, I already have a great bike in storage. Since you inspired my design idea, the bike is yours. There's no way this is a coincidence. This must be the boomerang Tata was telling me about, an Eid boomerang. Kareem looked at the bike sitting in the middle of the living room. He immediately knew what he was going to do. After Eid prayer, Kareem knocked on Sean's door. Hey, Kareem, Sean said, yanking the door up. Wait. I know what to say today. Eid Mubarak, he read off his palm. Haha, thanks, Kareem replied. Eid Mubarak. Hey, do you want to go on a bike ride with me? I know I'm skinny, said Sean, but I'm not sitting in the delivery basket. Kareem burst out laughing. He grabbed Sean's arm and pulled him into the hallway. Two identical, shiny bikes stood there, waiting to be ridden. Where did you get? I don't understand what's happening. It's a long story and I'll explain everything. But first, get your helmet and let's ride. The boys walked toward the elevator. A week ago, they had awkwardly stood in the same spot to go on Sean's first paper route. This has honestly been the weirdest week of my life, said Sean, mounting his new bike outside their building. Same here, Kareem replied, but a good kind of weird. They both grinned. As he rode next to his new friend, Kareem felt the cool breeze whoosh against his face. Tata's words echoed in his mind. Anytime you share something you love, it comes right back to you. He believed it. So that was one of the stories in Once Upon an Eid, and you can check out this book here at the library. It's full of wonderful short stories. Thank you so much for listening to our read aloud. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope that when you are reading a new book and you can't pronounce the words, you look them up just like I did and hopefully pronounce them as well as you can. And the more you do it, the better you'll be at it. All right. Thank you guys so much. And I hope you enjoyed this. Have a great day. Eid Mubarak. Bye.